Hi, I'm Rhonda Farrah. Welcome to my show, Fix Your Reflection First. I have had a wealth of life experiences, both good and bad, like everyone, and the one thing I have learned is that I am wholly responsible for the results. As I have evolved to liking the person I see in the mirror, my life has changed for the better, and that is what I help those that I coach do too. Please tune in every week as I will coach folks, listen to stories of success, and give you the tips and tools I have learned to make sure what you see is something you love and help you fix your reflection first. Welcome to Fix Your Reflection First and Live Your Best Life Ever. I'm your host, Rhonda Farrah, and this is Transformation Talk Radio Network. We are live, so if you have a question or there is something on your heart or your mind you'd like to share with us, please feel free to call in 800-930-2819, 800-930-2819. So wherever you are in your life, if you are not living the life you want to be living, the life that you desire, perhaps the life that you dream about, you have come to the right place. So happy that you joined us today as we explore how we may be mindful and make better choices to living our best life ever, the best version of ourselves. Our program, Fix Your Reflection First, is dedicated to awakening hearts, minds, and most especially spirit to our innate power from within, our authentic power from within, the power to thrive and not merely survive. Today's episode is entitled Take Your Brain Back, and we welcome special guest Laurie Hammer. Let me tell you a little bit about Laurie, and then we'll get moving with this interview. Laurie Hammer is a functional nutritional therapist and neuronutrient specialist who has a passion for helping clients with brain toxicity, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and related autoimmune conditions. Laurie overcame many personal health challenges and that of her family using advanced, holistic, and multi-therapeutic approaches with cancer, celiac disease, bulimia, depression, and other health challenges. Laurie consults with clients virtually as well as in person all over the world. Laurie's mission is to coach and empower women and a few men to achieve optimal brain health and live free from anxiety, depression, and related health challenges. Welcome, Laurie Hammer.
Thank you for having me, Rhonda.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Take our brain back. That's great. That's even more than mindfulness.
Right.
I introduced you, but tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I mean, you already noticed that I'm a nutritional therapist and I specialize in brain health. I'm also a mom of two amazing kids. I'm a wife and we homeschool and we live in small town Iowa and I love life.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you for being here so we can learn how to take our brain back. Let's start there. What does it mean to take your brain back?
Right. So I firmly believe that if we balance our brain, then everything below the neck gets easier to heal. And when I say balance our brain, I use specific amino acid therapy to balance all those neurotransmitters in our brain so that we can take a deep breath and enjoy life. We can feel joy. We can feel happiness again. We don't feel so overwhelmed. And we also work on thought processes. So it's all combined. But I feel like we're top-down people. And so if we do brain first, then everything else gets easier to handle.
Okay. Is this a new therapy?
No, amino acid therapy has been around actually a really long time. I was first exposed to it back in the 90s through my own health challenges with bulimia and anxiety and depression. But it was before that time as well. People have been using amino acids a long time.
Okay. Is that what is the popularity of amino acid therapy versus other therapies when it comes to the brain?
Yeah, so it's not readily utilized at the moment. So, I mean, there's a lot of amino acid supplements out there, like a full spectrum aminos you take after a workout, those kind of things. But for specific brain therapy, it's not as popular as I would like it to be. So I appreciate you having me on the show so that we can get the word out, because amino acids are just little pieces of protein, and your brain thrives on protein. And every single cell in our body, every enzyme, everything in our body needs an amino acid to function, especially our neurotransmitters that affect our mood, our outlook on life, how our thought processes happen, and so much more.
Okay, so it's truly a holistic approach to brain.
Truly holistic approach, yes.
Good. Well, you've had some struggles. As we mentioned. So talk to us a little bit about that. How did you get to the point where you were struggling with an eating disorder and then cancer, and what you decided at that point?
Sure. So the eating disorder was a 12-year-long kind of dark battle. Started at like late junior high through when I went to college. And it was just family dynamics as they were, bad relationships with food in the family, some mental health issues. And it just was one thing I thought I had control over was my eating. And I honestly, Rhonda, watched a Karen Carpenter movie, as twisted as that may sound. I thought, oh, I can do that for a little bit, lose some weight, and I'll be fine. And it sent me in this really long, long struggle. And it got worse when I left the house because it was easier. When you went to college, you could binge and purge all you wanted, where at home you had to be a little more secretive about those things. And so I really took a deep dive into depression and anxiety in college. And I had a nursing professor, because I was in nursing school at the time, and I had to drop out because I literally couldn't make it to my clinicals and all those kind of things. And she sent me an article that said, "You are addicted to what you're allergic to." And it was an article put out by a woman named Julia Ross, who's a pioneer in the amino acid industry and therapy. And she had a clinic out in California at the time. And so I called out there and I said, okay, this is what I got going on. And I went out there for outpatient because I couldn't get into an eating disorder clinic anywhere here because I wasn't suicidal. My weight wasn't low enough. I just wasn't bad enough to go into an eating disorder clinic. However, I was having seizures because I was passing out because of my electrolyte imbalance, all those kind of things. So I went out there and I was introduced to amino acid therapy. And then I did find out that everything that I was binging and purging on, my body was sensitive to. It was toxic. I was allergic to it. So all gluten, dairy, and I had celiac disease, found out I had some thyroid adrenal issues, gut issues, candida overgrowth. And so that was my first deep dive into this world of holistic health. And it literally saved my life. And so I cannot be more grateful for amino acid therapy. And that's why I am so passionate about it, especially for, women. I meet so many women who have eating disorders still in their 40s. It just looks different than it did in their 20s, and they've just been battling that for so long. So it's definitely a passion of mine.
How did that go over with your family when you were finally diagnosed with an eating disorder? And then, of course, the whole dynamics come into play.
Yeah. Well,
how are they involved? How am I responsible for her eating disorder, which is okay.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was a challenge. I mean, my mom found out that my parents found out that I had an eating disorder when I was in high school. And like I said, there were some family dynamic challenges there. And my mom just didn't handle it well, and I don't think she just didn't know how to handle it. And so it kind of got, well, just don't do that. And we'll just kind of sweep it under the rug and you'll be fine kind of thing. And then it got really bad in college, and that put a huge strain on our relationship. And then when I went out to the clinic, I went without them. Because I knew I had to heal and I had to do it on my own. And so I actually had a boyfriend at the time, and I took him out there with me because he's super supportive. And it was a challenge. They were not on board at all with any of this holistic therapy, the amino acids. They didn't believe I had celiac because I didn't have the biopsy done. It was a blood work, and that was just kind of coming out at the time. And so it was a huge struggle. Family members, family friends. I had a few that were super supportive, but it was a challenge because, I was trying to get well. And back then that was like, 25, 30 years ago. And it was readily accepted back then, let's just say.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yes.
So the eating disorder was, I think you mentioned for 12 years that was going on.
Yeah. From about 12 till, well, almost 24. Yeah.
So when you decided that the amino acid therapy that's for you. So what was the time frame? I mean, you've 12 years is a long time for an eating disorder. So how quickly did that therapy help you?
Well, within the first 90 days, I stopped binging and purging. So we had some hiccups here and there, but we tweaked the doses of the amino acids, and I literally was done binging and purging. And I never looked back. It was such a freedom. It makes me still cry. Such a freedom I never thought I would have because, I white knuckled my way through every single day. And to realize that all I needed to do was balance my brain. And clearly there's other things that needed to heal, but to balance the brain so that you didn't crave and that wasn't your coping mechanism anymore was the most phenomenal thing that could ever happen. I mean, I'm here today because of that.
So glad that you're here today and for what you went through. So if it wasn't amino acid therapy, people with eating disorders, okay, and whether they use a clinic or however they do this, whether it's inpatient or outpatient, what is the other alternative that's not amino acid?
A lot of talk therapy. There's a lot of things, around your relationship with food and, a lot of it's just talk therapy and working on food identity, your identity in your body. But it's all focused on the psychological. It's not focused on the deficiency that is triggering those emotions in the first place. And so that's why I mentioned before, I have women in their 40s that are still dealing with those emotions. They might not have bulimia anymore. They may not be practicing anorexia, but the thought patterns, the challenges are still there.
Well, exactly. It's, many people disagree with it used to be 25 or more % of what you inherit was from the physical.
Right.
It's really, I do the emotion stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's 3%. That's the new statistic. 3% is what you physically inherit. The rest is emotions that you're carrying. And who's going to break the bondage, the generational bondage, and move forward. So the amino acid therapy was working. Did you also introduce emotional therapy with that?
Yes, I did. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Good. And I will say with the emotional therapy, once I started the amino acids, that got so much easier. So, I was able to talk through things better and process things better, and then some things that I thought I was having such a challenge with, once my brain was balanced, I'm like, oh, I can deal with that. I can handle that now. And it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't traumatic anymore.
Well, the emotions and the thoughts play such a huge role.
Right. Yeah.
Our disease, our well-being, or our ill-being. And you were bright enough to know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, okay, so cancer comes into play now.
Right. So, I took that deep dive into this beautiful holistic world of health. And then, we fast forward, I had my one son, he was 8. And then my daughter was just 5 months old at the time. And I was the healthiest person I knew. So cancer was not on my radar. We ate healthy, we thought healthy, we lived healthy, all those kind of things. And I had this really weird growth on my leg. And my mom was like, get that checked. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm putting all my stuff on it. It'll go away. It's totally fine. I feel fine. It was postpartum. I was a little tired, little this, little that, no big deal. And then it got to the point where, okay, fine, I'll go get this checked out and, they'll remove it. And the doc was like, oh, I don't know. He gave me some name like post-pregnancy growth thing, no big deal. And then 2 weeks later, when I went to get my stitches out, he's like, you're not going to believe this. And they told me, the cancer that I had was really rare. They had to send it up to Mayo Clinic because nobody around here had seen it. Mayo Clinic hadn't seen it in 22 years. They're like, okay, this is bad. This is bad. It was a level 4 out of 5, the depth of the cancer. And so it's everywhere. We're just going to have to figure out, where the hot spots are, remove your lymph nodes, do this, do that. There is no chemotherapy for this. There is no radiation. Everything is going to be experimental. So you're going to have to go to Cleveland, stop nursing your baby, et cetera, et cetera. And so it like blew me away because my husband wasn't even with me. And I went out to the car and I said, okay, God, you know what my belief system is. You know that I always said I would never do this, what they were just talking about. So I said, I know, you know my heart. I know that you're going to provide a way out of it or you're going to heal me radically. Right. Mm-hmm. And he did both. So it was amazing. Did all the testing. Cancer was nowhere. Zero. It was between Monday and Friday. It was gone. So
that's a thought. That's your thought process as well. That's
100%, Rhonda. 100%.
I get it. The God of my understanding is not in the sky, right here.
Yep. And that's he's right there. Yeah.
Right there. And it's so true. You've proved more times than not now the emotions determine the thoughts, and it determines our external world and the incidence of disease or well-being.
Yeah.
I have to ask, was the eating disorder in any way brought you to cancer? That's
a great question. I don't think so. I mean, there was obviously it created a bunch of deficiencies. So those deficiencies could have been carried over that I didn't know about. When doors were open for me to go see other holistic practitioners, I found out that I had a heavy metal issue, right? And this one doc says, "Were you on Accutane as a teenager?" I said, "Yeah, I was on 2 rounds of it because my acne was so bad, really bad cystic acne. And then I was on birth control at the time because you can't be on Accutane as a girl without being on birth control. So my hormones were way whacked out. And Accutane is like rat poison to the body, which clearly, my parents didn't know that at the time. And I was 16, so why would I know? He's just still in your system. It was still affecting my liver. It was still in my tissues. And so to combine that with some heavy metals and the fact that I used a lot of glyphosate as a kid. I rode the bean bar. We live in farming country. We didn't protect ourselves back then. We didn't know those things. And, I can just probably name a whole host of toxicity issues. And there's the emotional toxicity piece as well that are things that I just hadn't dealt with. And so took a deep dive into, all those aspects. And, cancer is gone. It's been it's been over 17 years now.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Welcome to the Cancer Thriving people, of which I am one. So for me, the healing of oneself and then being a healer myself, being a light worker, as they call it, we're in the transformation business. How did that help heal you? I see you're so passionate about what you do. You're speaking, you're very outspoken in a wonderful way. You're very vulnerable with the audience. And so talk to us about that. The healing.
So, after I was healed or the healing process? I want to make sure I'm understanding your question.
Now you went through all this and you healed. Basically, you healed yourself because you had the emotional stamina to do just that. So now it sounds like you're dedicated to help others having that emotional stamina.
Yes.
To heal themselves.
Yes, I am.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So when people come to work with me, we balance the brain because we got to address the physical piece of it. Because then I feel like the emotional piece is easier to delve into. And so that's the goal. I have a few, other therapists that I'll refer people out to if it's something that, we don't deal with, in my office. Otherwise, we're working on mindset. We're working on how do we speak to ourselves? What's our identity? How are we created? What were we created to do, to live and to thrive for? And then we work on healing, because if we don't have that mindset, it's really hard to heal the liver because we hold so many emotions in our liver and in our colon and, our heart. And so I want people to be able to, let go of those stuck emotions. Let's fix the physical deficiencies, and so that your body can function head to toe.
I'm a believer that forgiveness or non-forgiveness plays a crucial role in our ill-being. What would you say about that?
I believe 100%. You can't harbor unforgiveness and expect to heal. And I was just with a client today, and her daughter died of cancer like a year and a half ago. And she's struggling. Like she's done all the stuff, she needs to do. She's on the right supplements, this and that. And, every time she comes in, I'm like, you got to forgive God, right? You got to forgive God and you've got to let him, touch your heart, and you have to be open again. Otherwise, this stuff is not going to heal,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's her assignment this week, as it was last week too. But some people just won't, they're not going to heal unless they're able to surrender and forgive. Yeah.
Absolutely. And forgive yourself as well.
And forgive yourself 100%. Yeah. So there's, we have exercises we work through on forgiveness, and yeah.
That's as a lifestyle empowerment alchemist and coach myself, I'm set. Well, first of all, what's an alchemist? Well, you can take the joys and the sorrows, but also take that not so good stuff in life and make it work for you rather than less. So not so good stuff is disease. It's cancer. Right. It's an eating disorder. So how do you address that with clients? That this happened. Okay, this happened. Now this is what we're working with right now. Mm-hmm. So what I believe we could call everything forward. We can call everything forward to learn lessons and be a better version of ourselves. So what would you say about that?
We work on not being angry about where they are at the moment, and knowing that from this moment forward, everything is going to be upward, and just having that mindset that your body can heal. We just remove the interferences, whether that be chemical, physical, or emotional. And then once those interferences are removed, along the way, we're going to have to keep removing stuff. And then your body's going to function the way it was created to function.
I'm curious about your relationship now with your parents, if you'd like to talk about that, because of your healing, the fact that you did this.
Yeah. So it was, kind of rocky here and there over the years, for sure. My mom died 1.5 years ago of dementia related stuff at a very young age of only 69. And, that, like I said, family dynamics were a challenge. And so those things were never fully addressed for her, unfortunately, growing up until she died. And I have a good relationship with my dad now. And so there's a lot of forgiveness and healing that's happened in both of those spaces. Definitely.
Glad to hear that. So very glad to hear that. I'm curious when you say you help women primarily and a few men. So talk to me about that. Let's talk to our listeners about that.
Well, my belief system, because I love being a mom, I love being a wife, and I see when I'm able to make a difference in a woman in the family, then that changes the family. Yes. And so if you can change the family, then you change the environment around the family. If you change that, change society, that whole ripple effect. Because women are the heart of the home. And if mom is happy, everything else flows. And you can't have a bad day as a mom, even with the dog. The dog's going to be grumpy if you're grumpy. It's just the way, life is. If you have a grumpy husband, I always work with women. I said, not putting that responsibility on them, but how can you bring more light, into the family so that this isn't a stressful thing that's hindering your healing. And so that can be really challenging. And, I come at it from, a Christian perspective. And so we're always, giving things up to God and praying together and doing all those things. So I really firmly believe that the woman's the heart of the home and can make the biggest difference. So that's why I love to help that, because that changes kids' lives, change husbands' lives, and that ripple effect. And then, a few men sneak in there, which I like to help men as well. But most men, aren't coming in because they just don't, because they're not, they just don't. So I appreciate the ones that I do have. And I'll get calls like, I know you only work with women, but would you consider working with me? And of course, I say yes.
What's your biggest success story working with someone?
I guess it depends on what aspect you want to come from. I have women who are, I have this one woman, she's been my client a long time and I just love her to pieces. she couldn't even function after noon because her husband said, you can't drive, because she would fall asleep. And her kids are like, you've lost your fun, And so she came to me, we worked on things, 3 to 6 months, all of a sudden she's driving, past noon again. And her kids are like, you got your fun bone back, and I see that happen a lot. And she was sitting in her appointment with me, and her husband called and said, I just want to tell you, thank you. Like, this has made a huge difference in our marriage even. And I've gotten several of those phone calls over the years from husbands just saying thank you, or the husband comes in and starts working with me. It just brings me so much joy.
Very cool. That's very cool. So when you work with a client virtually, I mean, we're in the virtual age. Is that as effective, or do you like working in person better?
Oh no, we can do it. We can do it virtually. I mean, I love seeing people face to face, but virtual is great. I just send them, all the information they need, supplement samples, those kind of things. And we meet on Zoom just like this and have our appointment and test the amino acids. And it's fantastic.
Okay. How can people get a hold of you?
You can go to my website, lauriehammer.com, and you can schedule a free consult with me. You can follow me on my podcast, Take Back My Brain, and catch me there. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Okay. And all that information for our viewers will appear in the show description.
Fantastic.
So any parting words for our audience?
Yeah, just like a vibrant life is possible. So if we remove the interferences, your body can heal. And so I just want you to have hope that there is hope out there. Like, there is definitely an answer to what's going on with you. And I believe that firmly with all my heart.
Great. Well, you are an example of, regardless of challenges or struggles, we have the opportunity, if we choose to, let all of it serve us rather than anything less. So whatever tunnel we happen to be traveling down, the light at the end is not necessarily a train. I don't believe it's a train. The light at the end of that tunnel is the light and the way and the guidance, the opportunity to move forward and be the best version of ourselves. So thank you for joining us today, Laurie Hammer. Thank you, guests, for joining us. I'm Rhonda Farrah. You've been listening to Fix Your Reflection First and Live Your Best Life Ever. And this is Transformation Talk Radio Network. So until next time, have a beautiful day every day. And I invite you all, again, to treat life as if it were ice cream and enjoy it before it melts. Thank you. I'm Rhonda Farrah, and you have been listening to Fix Your Reflection First. Tune into Transformation Talk Radio every first and third Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time for success stories of folks I have coached. I will be sharing more of my tips and tools that you can use to love the person you see in the mirror and how to fix your reflection first. Live your best life ever by choosing to be bold and courageous, even if it means getting out of your comfort zone. To connect with me, visit helpmerhondanow.com.